And happy Thursday. It's a beautiful day. So today we are going to be making a 3-strand bracelet, and I called it Tribal Echoes. So let me show you what it looks like. And I have to tell you, this was probably one of my favorite color palettes. In fact, I have 2 color palettes, and they're possibly both my favorite. And I will tell you what I love about this type of a project. Maybe I'll just put this on so that I can show you the whole thing. So this is a bracelet with an adjustable chain. So I'm just going to clasp right into one of the links. And well, before we talk about the advantages of the adjustable chain, we will talk about the palette.
Linda says hello.
Hi, Linda.
And Amy says hi.
And hello, Amy. So I'm just going to show you the whole bracelet by moving it slowly around my wrist so that you can see the clasp and the entire palette of the bracelet. So this is a slightly different palette than a lot of my projects because it has so many different components. So the way I approach a project like this, and I do love palettes that include so many different colors, but it does need to have something that just pulls the whole thing together and makes it into a really multi-layered, cohesive palette. So let me tell you a little story. I started out with, so this little stripy bead, you guys have seen these before. I've had these in other projects. I've had these in some of the shopping videos. And lately it seems to be one of everybody's favorites. So these are Indonesian lampwork beads, and they're a little bit like African beads. They just look very tribal. They're a bit muted. And what I love about them is they have so much color, and yet because it is muted, it mixes so perfectly with gemstone.
Fonda says good evening, everyone.
Hello, good evening, Fonda. I'm so glad you joined us.
Ellen says hi, Irina and everyone.
Hi, Ellen.
Betty says hello, you guys.
Hello, Betty.
Katie S says good evening, happy Thursday.
Hi, Katie, and happy Thursday too, my friend.
Linda says love that color palette too.
Thank you so much, Linda. Do you like the bluish or the turquoise-ish or the reddish? The turquoise color palette, or, you know, I shouldn't really call it turquoise because there's so much in it. But so this one I called Painted Desert. And this one I know I named after a flower. Okay, it's amaranth. That's what it is. It's amaranth. And so let me know if you guys have a favorite palette. So I'm leaning just slightly towards the Painted Desert, although they're both my babies, and I really love both of these palettes.
Allie says hi, cute bracelets.
Hi, Allie. Thank you so much.
Linda S loves the turquoise-ish.
Oh, thank you so much. So again, this is Painted Desert, and the one with lots of reds and oranges is Amaranth.
Ellen says both colors are stunning.
Thank you so much, Ellen.
Amy says great combination of beads for bracelets.
Yay, thank you so much.
Karen says good evening.
Hi, good evening, Karen.
Barb says good evening, everyone.
And good evening, Barb. So I think I'm going to take this one off and just put it right here in front of me so that we can see where it is that we're going. So yes, getting back to the palette and the inspiration for the palette, is, I'm just getting back to that. So we have these Indonesian beads that mix so beautifully with gemstone, with glass. They just sort of, I don't know, they're a bit of a chameleon because they have all these colors and yet the colors are subtle. So it's very easy to blend them into different palettes. And so this type of a palette, either one, addresses something that sometimes, sometimes when you're looking to accessorize an outfit and maybe you have a blue bracelet or a turquoise bracelet or a red bracelet, and yet it doesn't quite match your outfit. Because maybe it's not exactly the shade that you want. Well, this has so many different shades and colors. It literally goes with everything. Even though these are two different palettes, but each palette includes so many colors that it is likely to go with nearly anything you wear. So, I think I'm going to get started, and we're not going to make the entire bracelet today, but we're going to make enough of it where you know exactly how to start and finish.
Jody says hi from Bama. Just ordered a kit.
Hi, Jody. Thank you so much. Which one did you get? Which one do you like? Okay, ladies, so to illustrate my point, I'm just going to show you, and I know it would probably be more fun if I took all these out, but I think I'm just not going to make too much of a mess right now and keep these in the bags. So
Jody says the blues.
very good. Thank you so much. Enjoy. So, this is where we're going. We have this palette and you have a multiple variety of bags with all sorts of beads in them. One of the little baggies is all sorts of assorted treasures, and others are sorted with their friends. So when you get the kit, what I would do if I were you is just pour everything out in little groups and start playing with your beads. And the purpose of this is just kind of getting to know what is in your kit, because what is in your kit is really very diverse, and it's going to be entirely up to you to decide what goes into each strand. So I like to start with the center strand, even though honestly, is it going to really matter? Probably not, because this is a very casual bracelet. And as you wear it, some of your, depending on how loose or tight you make it, some of your strands may shift, it might twist, it might do something like this, and yet it still looks good.
Pammy J says good evening, everyone.
Hi, Pammy J, and good evening to you, my friend. So the point is to just kind of get to know your beads, and then start separating your beads into 3 groups. And so my middle strand on both of these is probably the most diverse. And then I'm using some of these. Wait, is this my middle strand? I think yes. I think I just need to untangle it. So you can see that I'm using some mini patterns. I do this a lot in jewelry design, where I might use the same bead for just a short while, or maybe an inch or two, or sometimes it's less than an inch, and then I move on to another mini pattern. And some of my mini patterns can be just single beads, and there's a little bit of a graduated effect here, where we're graduating from the larger beads in the center to the smaller beads on the ends. There's also a practical aspect of making your beads smaller or picking smaller beads for the ends, and this is so that we can fit everything in. If we had all chunky beads at the ends, it simply would not fit. So this is a very casual bracelet. What makes it casual is not only the choice of beads, but also the choice of findings. If I wanted to make it a more formal bracelet, a more dressy, formal bracelet, I would probably have used a 1 to 3 component, something that has a loop and connects to the clasp on one end and then to the other 3 strands on the other side. So that is something that would make our piece appear a little bit more formal. So with a casual piece like that, we don't worry about aligning the strands perfectly. In fact, it kind of adds to the charm of the piece where it looks just a little bit disheveled, a little bit casual. And then it's very easy to wear with your jeans, with your casual outfits. And so I think we're just going to jump into it and start creating. So I know you guys have seen me do this many, many times. We are going to make a self needle. And a self needle is made by putting a little bit of glue on our stringing material, which happens to be Ceylon. I like Ceylon. And so what I'm going to do is just very carefully let the glue run out, and then I'm just kind of dragging the bottle of my glue along the Ceylon strand. Oh, you know what? I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. When you get your kit, you will find 48 inches of Ceylon. And by the way, once you put the glue on the Ceylon, as quickly as possible, remove as much as you can with just a folded piece of paper. So just something like this. So just go along the entire and remove as much as possible. So when you take the Ceylon out, just cut it into 3 parts, 3 equal parts. So each part should be 16 inches. So this piece of Ceylon is 16 inches, and I just made a self needle. I already created a self needle on the other side. So and I let it dry already just to kind of expedite things for the video. So once it's dry, and it's going to take it less than a minute to dry. So once it is dry, we are simply going to cut both ends. And so just to be clear, we are doing this with both ends. So with your regular wire cutter or a pair of scissors, we're going to cut the string at an angle like this so that it makes a little pointy needle. And of course, the glue has stiffened it a little bit, and it's going to work very similar to a needle. And here's my other end, and I will do the same. So you can see how very, very quickly this glue dries. So there's my little self needle. It's actually pretty pointy. I can feel the point of it. Okay, so once you have your self needle, what we will do is start stringing. So if you look at my ends, and I just realized that I didn't grab the very smallest of the beads, but that's okay. So if you look at the very, very ends of both of my bracelets, you can see that I am using the smallest of my beads, and those are 11/0s and 11/0 spacers. So we will do exactly the same thing as we string our beads. And I'm just going to string a few beads. These are not necessarily the smallest beads, but all I'm going to do is just show you how very, very easy it is to pick up your beads once you have the self needle. It's really nice. It just keeps it in stiff enough, and it's a little bit pointy so you can see. It's just like using a regular needle. So we're going to fast forward a little bit, just like we like to do in these videos. And through the magic of Facebook Live, look at this. My strand is already pre-strung. So obviously I did this before the video, and I am just using my little holders to hold on to the string so that the beads do not fall off. So once you have the strand, actually you could approach it in a couple of different ways. You could start just with the one strand, or you could pre-string all three. I did not pre-string all three, but you can do either. And of course, the advantage of pre-stringing all three is so that you can see exactly where each bead is in relation to the next bead, and this will give you an opportunity to, for example, some of my brighter colors, I like to make sure that they're kind of sprinkled throughout. But then again, if you're kind of in a hurry just to get started, sometimes I get a little bit impatient and I just make my first strand and then I do the rest. So I think we will use that last approach. So I am going to start tying my strand onto the clasp. And you could even tie your strand onto the clasp first and then string. So really, however it makes you happy. So we will just, as I said, this is a very, very casual bracelet. So we're not using as many components as we normally would for the clasp. We're not using a wire guardian. We're kind of keeping it simple. The palette is complicated enough, frankly. And I will say just one more thing about the palette. So sometimes, I don't think I ever actually finished my thought. So sometimes when I start on a certain palette, I will take the bead or the component that inspires the whole thing, and I just look at it very closely. So look at these beautiful beads from Java. These are handmade. They just have so much character, and they have so much color. So once you start looking closely at the color and just kind of dissecting it, there's some lovely blues, there's some off-whites, there's a little bit of red. So it's very natural to bring those colors in. And once you bring those colors in that you pull out of your initial inspiration bead, once you pull those out, you look at your palette and you kind of see what else it may need or what would complement the palette. And then it's pretty much in the eye of the beholder, right? If it looks good to you as part of that color puddle, then go for it. Okay, ladies, so what I'm going to do is attach my strand to the clasp. And I think I'll just move all the beads down and make an overhand knot. So the and that we work on first, it's very, very easy to make that overhand knot on that and. But the remaining end, we will not be able to tie in the same way. So we'll just do it a little bit differently. And so once I have my knot, of course, I will glue it in place. I always glue my knots so that nothing gets unraveled. And I use super new glue, and I always start on the side of the string that I'm going to cut off, so that that little end of our string that we're going to be cutting off, that's where I pour the glue, and then I just guide the glue down to the knot. I make sure that there's a little bit of glue that does get to the knot. If you're not sure, just do it again. And so this is going to be maybe just a couple of seconds it'll take to dry, and we can chat while we're waiting for it to dry. So the other side of this is going to be the chain. And I love using a little bit of a large link chain as an extender. So this type of a chain makes a beautiful extender. And of course, the advantage of an extender is that you can make your bracelet larger, you can make it smaller, it is adjustable. So if you are making it for someone else, you don't quite know their size, this is a very, very easy way to resolve that. And also, even if it's for you, you know, I know some days I want it to fit a little tighter, some days I want it to fit a little looser. I guess it depends on the day. So this gives us an opportunity to do just that. In the meantime, our knot is dry, or the glue rather is dry. So we're just going to cut off the extra string, and I'm about to put a little a 3mm crimp cover over the knot.
And Allie is wondering what string this is.
Oh, thank you for asking, Ellie. It is Ceylon. It's one of my favorite things to string on. I think I'm going to maybe move one of these so I can get a little closer to the camera, since this is so small. So I have a 3mm crimp cover, and the knot is quite large. Now I could not really go with a 4mm crimp cover, because it would just, you know, between the 3 that it takes right here, it would be just too chunky. It would be too much. So even though it's a bit snug, I'm going with the 3mm, and we're going to pre-open it a little bit, a little more than it is already. And so I'm just holding on to it nice and tight between my fingers, and it is now just ever so slightly wider. The opening is a little bit larger. So now this goes right over our knot. And while holding on to it nice and tight, and we'll make sure that the knot goes all the way inside the crimp cover, we're going to use our chain nose pliers to move the two sides of the crimp cover together. And once we just have a little opening, we always shift to right next to that opening with our crimp covers. You can see where the jaw of my pliers, my chain nose pliers, is right next to the opening. So I just pushed on it a little bit and got it closed on that side, and then I turned it around, and we will close it on the other side as well. And it may take a couple of times, turning it one way, turning it another way. And of course, the goal is to make it look like a little round bead at the end of your string.
Allie says, oh yes, you've helped me realize how awesome Ceylon is.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad you like Ceylon. I think it's so versatile. I love how drapey it is. It drapes beautifully. And the thing is, even when you see, and I will say, you do see the ends of the Ceylon on this bracelet. So when you see it, it kind of adds a little kind of a casual charm to your piece. And so now we are going to tie our strand to the chain. So this is the other side, right? And we are tying it to the chain at this point.
Linda says Ceylon is one thing I've never worked with.
Oh, Linda, welcome to the wonderful world of Ceylon. And I promise you, I don't work for Ceylon. I just really love it as a product. I like the colors that it comes in. There's like a schmillion colors. And I like the drapiness of it. I like the weight of it. It works with so many things. It's kind of not too thin and not too thick. So I really like it.
Kathy C says, good hint for opening crimp covers.
Oh, thank you so much, Kathy. I'm glad you like it. So as you can see, I'm attaching slightly differently. So really, however you can attach to the other side is entirely fine. Any kind of a knot you can make is totally fine. So now I have knotted my Ceylon onto the chain, and we will do exactly the same thing. Of course, we will glue the knot. Just kind of drag that little drop of glue along the part of the string that you intend to cut off. And if you have a little extra, just whisk it away with a piece of paper. And we will set this aside to dry for, just a few seconds.
Jody is wondering, will Eslon work too?
Jody, I have not tried it with Eslon, but it should. I do know that Eslon and Ceylon are very similar, especially given that they're made at the same factory. In the meantime, I'm setting up my beads for the next step. So it probably will work with Eslon. However, since I haven't tried it, I just hesitate to say definitively. Okay, ladies, so in the meantime, while we're waiting for our Ceylon to dry, we're just going to look at the end of our extender chain. And at the end of our extender chain, we have a couple of little baubles. Sometimes I do 1 or 2 or 3. It's pretty much whatever the mood strikes me. There's really no right or wrong number of baubles. You do have 2 ball pins included in the kit, so you decide. So just save a couple of beads for the very end, and we're going to string them onto our ball pins. So I think I will put this little spacer with the lapis bead, and I have to tell you, there's so many different, actually no, I wanted the other way. There's so many different gemstones in this bracelet. So there's turquoise, there's amazonite, there's carnelian, and lapis lazuli, and apatite, and yellow flower jasper, Botswana, natural quartz. So I'm sure I'm missing a few, but it's really quite the rock collection. So in the meantime, I have my beads for my bauble, and I'm just going to set them aside right here because I would love to finish the knot before I move on. So we are just going to cut off the excess string, and let's see, I don't know if I need to make this larger. Maybe I don't, so let's just try. Sometimes you can tell, sometimes they're open just a tiny bit more, and this one was just right. So my knot fits entirely in this 3 millimeter crimp cover. So same thing, we're just going to push the sides of our crimp together with our chain nose pliers, and now I am shifting the chain nose to the seam, and I'm just focusing on closing that seam. And done. So again, the goal is to make it look similar to just a little round bead, and that's it. So before I move on to the bauble, I do want to let you know, so this is a little show and tell part of our story. So when you look very closely at my 3 strands on the bracelet, so you can see the center strand and then the other 2 strands that frame it. So whatever strand is in the center is just going to be ever so slightly shorter than the other 2 strands. Why? Because as you can see, the way that they're attached, they're just knotted right onto the chain on this side and right onto our lobster claw, our swivel. Oh, and by the way, swivel lobster claws for this type of bracelet are amazing. I don't know if everybody is familiar with swivel claws. So there's a little loop right here, and then the claw can just rotate without twisting the bracelet. And that is what's going to make your bracelet lay very nicely on your wrist. Okay, so now we've talked about the swivel claw. Let's come back to the length of the strands. So the 2 strands that frame the center strand are going to be just ever so slightly longer, because as you can see, the way that they're attached, it's almost like they slightly wrap around, and there's like this little bit of a kind of bend in the string, and that is just fine. It's supposed to be exactly like that. When we're not using a 3-to-1 component, this is exactly how we attach, and this is a really fun way to do it. So this is where I'm getting.
Allie says the swivel clasp makes it so much easier to put on.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Ellie. It's so the swivel clasp is just slightly larger than my regular size lobster that I normally use. And the swivel itself, because it rotates, it just makes it so simple. So when you create these 2 strands, just keep in mind, you want to, before you actually attach it, so you attach it to one side, and when you go to attach it to the other side, just see how it lays against the center strand. And you may decide that you want to add maybe a seed bead or 2. There are lots of fun little seed beads that I use here for spacers. So, so my suggestion is tie one of the ends, and then when you go to the other side, at that point, decide if it needs to be just ever so slightly longer. And speaking of the length, so somewhere here I have a ruler. So let's talk a little bit about sizing before we move on to finishing the bracelet. So just very quickly, this strand right here, oh, you know what, you probably want to see this in inches, right? So let's do this in inches, and maybe we'll also do it in centimeters and millimeters. Okay, so when you look, and let's just look at just the beaded portion of it. So the beads start right here before the crimp cover, and they end right there. And on mine, on the blue version, it's exactly 5.5 inches. So if you're making a bracelet that, let's say, you want it to be 7 inches, just remember, just your beads are going to be about 5.5 inches, right? And so once we start adding all these other little parts, so we tie our strand onto the clasp. And now if we measure from the clasp to the chain, now all of a sudden we have added, wait, how did this happen? Oh yeah, it's true. We have actually added 1/2 inch between just a little bit of string and the 2 crimps on each side. So, oh, no, I was questioning myself and I was wrong for the first time ever, of course. So this is actually 5 3/4 inches, right? So once we add our crimp covers, it's 5 3/4 inches. Okay, now let's keep adding. So now we add our swivel lobster clasp. And now this is not including the chain. Now we have 6.5 inches, just a hair under 6.5 inches. So between all the little hardware pieces, right, not including the chain, we have 6.5 inches. So if you are thinking, I am making a bracelet for somebody who wears a 7-inch bracelet, this is probably a good size, even though the bracelet is 6.5, not including the chain. But you know, me, normally I wear 6.5 to 7, and it's kind of a little bit loosey-goosey, so I don't think anybody really wears exactly one size. It all depends on the size of the beads. It depends on so many different factors. But because this is adjustable, clearly you can make it whatever you want, and you have enough beads in the kit to make it up to 9 inches. So you decide. If you want, not including the chain, for your bracelet to be 7 inches, then the beaded portion is going to be 6 inches, right? Because we just figured out that 1 inch is going to be added just by using the crimp covers and the clasp, and that does not include the chain. So I hope that all made sense. Let me know, please, if that made sense, the sizing part. And in the meantime, we are going to make our baubles. And of course, these are just going to be connected to our extender chain via wrapped loops. And so this is going to be a little bit of a review of how we make the wrapped loops. And what I'm doing right now is I'm using my chain nose pliers to make a 90-degree angle in each one of the ball pins. And now I have switched to my round nose pliers, and I am making a loop by going in the opposite direction of the bend, and then I wrapped it the rest of the way, leaving the wire at a 90-degree angle again. And we'll do this with the other one right away. So the way I like to make my wrapped loops is I get to the point where it looks like a question mark. Can you guys see the question mark? Maybe if I take out the pliers. You don't really have to take out the pliers. I'm just taking it out just so you can see the question mark. And so what I normally do is I get to that point, and then I simply use my thumb and just kind of wrap the wire around until I have a full loop. And you always want your wire to end up at a 90-degree angle once more.
Allie says, slightly off topic, will you have a booth or kiosk at the Interweave Bead Fest this weekend?
Oh, thank you for asking, Allie.
Funny you ask.
Yeah, funny you should ask. So yes, in fact, we do have a booth. We're trying this. This is a kind of an experiment. Clearly, this is a show that is here for the first time ever. So yes, actually, we are set up. I have not been there. I don't know that I'm going, but Tony is at the show. And so come on down. Or of course, always come to the store. We have so much more in the store, as you very well know.
Allie says, yay, see you tomorrow.
Oh, fantastic. So stop by and say hi to Tony and Sandy. Okay, guys, so I'm just tucking in the excess, well, it's not really the excess wire, but I actually cut off the excess wire, and that, as you know, leaves a little tail, and so I just pinched it in. And let's do this one more time. So we made our loop, and that makes it very easy to connect to the chain. So clearly we leave it uncoiled until we are able to connect it to the chain. And now I'm just taking that end of the loop and making a wrapped loop. I do like making organically wrapped loops, meaning I wrap it from the loop to the bead and then from the bead to the loop again. So it's actually wrapped twice, which is what makes it appear a little bit more chunky. And I think for a casual piece like this, with like little echoes of various tribal cultures, I think this look is very appropriate. Okay, ladies, so clearly I only attached one strand and created one strand, but the other two strands are going to be just as easy. The only thing, again, just remember they're going to be a little bit longer. How much longer? That's really going to be up to you. But if you were to look at my bracelet, you can see that the outside strands are just a tiny bit longer. If I had to guess, maybe around 1/8 of an inch. And you know, even if you forget it, it will still lay just right. They really do not have to be identical for your bracelet to lay just right around your wrist. So that is pretty much my story, and I'm sticking to it. So what do you guys think? Do you have any questions at all on how to do this? I think this is pretty straightforward, right? So, and I can see that I didn't quite untangle my bracelet. Sometimes it takes, you know, once you get a little, oh, I figured it out. Yay. So, you know, it never happens where I figure it out right away on camera. So this was a very lucky fluke. Okay, guys, so I think you know how to do this. And of course, both colorways at this point are in the Etsy shop. So please come to the Etsy shop and peruse. And in the meantime, I'm going to give you a little preview of next week's project. Now, before we talk about next week's project, actually, let me remind you, there is no video tomorrow. And now you know why there's no video tomorrow, because we are, well, when I say we, I mean Tony is at the show. And of course, I can't do a video by myself. Who is going to be behind the camera? So we're not doing a video tomorrow. We did one yesterday, so the Wednesday video was in place of the Friday video. And for anybody who missed it, it was a really fun kind of like summer bead shopping video. You can always re-watch it. And so in the meantime, our next video, oh, and let me put this on so that I can show you how it fits and how it looks on. So in the meantime, so this is what we're making. And so this is the boho lotus bracelet. And we're going to be doing this bracelet tutorial next Thursday, June 1st. I can't believe it's June already, my goodness. So Thursday, June 1st at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time on this page, which is the Irina Miech page. That is me. And so that's going to be our next video, next Thursday. And the one after is going to be on Friday, and that is going to be the Facebook Live shopping event. And this is yet to be announced. So if you have any ideas as far as what we should do for next Friday video, just let us know. So again, as of June 2nd, we will be back to Fridays.
Linda says, looks great with this week's project.
Oh, thank you so much. And yes, I agree with you. These could definitely be stacked. I think a lot of my bracelets could be stacked like this, actually.
Allie says, oh, nice. And Fauna says, pretty bracelet.
Thank you so much. So this one is mostly about wrap loops. So we'll be reviewing our wrap loops. Anybody who needs a little wrap loop therapy, please join me next Thursday. And then of course we will be reviewing the barrel knots, which I am actually doing them slightly differently than I was doing them, say, a year ago. I think they're just a little bit new and improved. So I'm very, very happy with the new way I'm doing the barrel knots. And I'm hoping you can join me for this. All right, ladies, thank you so much for watching. And thank you for all of your wonderful comments and questions. So if you are going to be around, come on down to the show. Definitely, we would love to see you at the store. And if you can't make either, there's always the Etsy shop, and there are the shopping events on Fridays. So thank you again, and you have a wonderful and creative evening.